All right, there we go. Welcome to April and May in Open Discussion Fridays. If you've got my email, you know that we're changing up a little bit, trying each week to make sure that you all have an opportunity to share what you are doing, as well as us be able to share what we're learning in different places. And so we're going to have kind of a set agenda where we have an opportunity for everybody to share their technology tools, what they've been doing. Would love to have some of the teachers come on and show, demonstrate some of the things they've been doing in their class, or talk about things they've been doing in their class. What kind of technology tools are working for learning, what are not, so that we can all kind of curate together as we move forward. We're going to do share distance ed specific approaches for different learner levels and program types, and try to highlight one each week. What we'd like to do too is, and we'll ask for that today, those of you that would like to have longer technical assistance or conversations around a specific learning level. Once we've had these discussions, we can put those together so we can have smaller groups talk specifically about those. And today we're going to focus on ESL for the lower levels, and also low-level ABEs. So you'll be hearing about that a little bit. And then DOE will let us know, what are they hearing the most about? What are your biggest questions, so that everybody gets an opportunity to share on that. Do an open forum. Today, we'd like to talk a little bit about what you're doing about enrollment. So we'll do different topics during that, and try to wrap that up within the first hour, so that we can leave the last half hour in case there are new things coming down from federal guidance or Virginia guidance that is important for everybody to know as they're running programs moving forward. And if there's nothing there, then we'll wrap it up as the hour finishes. So that's how we are planning on moving forward. So we're going to start today with an opportunity to share some technology tools, and I'm going to turn it over to Katie Bradisax to lead us in this discussion. Katie, you need to unmute.
I should have known. It was perfect. What I said was perfect. I can't even continue now. I was saying happy Friday, everyone. Glad you all could be here with us today. In the past couple weeks, we've talked about different technology that people are trying out. And so I was hoping we could open up some of your mics or the chat. If you could just share with us some of the tools that you've been trying out and how that's been going so far. And Joanne, would you mind unsharing? That way we can all see each other. Has anybody had, I know I did a training last week on Zoom. Has other people had any luck with Zoom or other video technology like that? Amy?
I'd be happy to share. Sharon and I just got off of an hour and a half Zoom with full faculty. We're doing that every Friday at 11 o'clock to see which instructors kind of shine at this moment. So there are some surprises in that. We are using Zoom. We're looking at Google Classroom. We're using the distance tools that we already had in our toolbox, like Essential Ed, Standout, USA Learn. But what we have tried to do from a PD standpoint is kind of create some little mini PLCs on different topics and different tools, and assign instructors to those based on what they seem to be interested in or how their classes might work. But the ultimate goal is to allow the teachers to have some ownership of that, because they know their students best. And as long as they're operating within, distance policy, which we're trying to keep a handle on, I think that's working best. And it gives them some power right now when they might not feel very powerful. They might feel a little powerless. And I think that we're getting a lot of creativity out of that. But Zoom has been the primary, little Google Classroom, and they're thriving. I mean, I'm very excited today at how well it's going.
Good. Amy, that's one of the questions I wanted to follow up with. I think that's great. So it sounds like you're letting the teachers, they're able to kind of look around and try things out. And so are you guys sharing that feedback out to each other? Oh, I tried this, but it didn't work so well.
Yes, we go into each Friday meeting with an agenda. And the agenda is driven by the questions we get during the week and the questions we get in the chat on the Friday meetings. And there is a report out section. If we know something really fabulous is happening out in the field, we have that person speak. Not unlike the way these meetings go. I've kind of used that honestly as a little bit of a model for how to handle it. And it's just interesting. It's interesting to see. We have an instructor in Shenandoah County who's always been very proactive and very involved in the community, and she's up to her normal tricks, but she's using different tools. It's just amazing to me. And actually, some of the teachers are using, especially in ESL, they're using their own students to help with some of the communication. For example, in Shenandoah County, we have a ton of Ethiopian students. And so we're having a point person reach out to their friends and say, this is how you get on Zoom, because we don't have anyone on staff who speaks Amharic. So that kind of creativity is what is exciting for me. But yes, we are reporting out. We are reporting out.
Excellent.
This is Donna Moffitt, and hi. In Prince William County, we've been having creating virtual classrooms with Zoom, and we've also connected with our teachers on a regular basis. And on Monday, we have a teacher workday scheduled, so we're having training on breakout rooms with Zoom breakout rooms. So I'm really anxious to hear about that, and so are some of the other teachers, because I think that's a venue where they could actually connect with their students one-on-one as well. So that's where we are, but our staff really seems to like it a lot. And the meetings that we've had have been very good in that we've had a lot of participants and they're sharing information with one another. But we really are looking forward to Monday's session on breakout rooms.
That's great. Thank you. Nicole, did you have I see your little hand raised. Did you want to share?
Sure. So we are using Zoom along with our previous distance ed platforms providers that we already used. The one suggestion, I think it was kind of touched on, and I forgot now who said that, that one of the things that we realized, we just started our online classes last week. I forget what week it is right now, what day it is. But what we noticed the first week was there were a lot of questions that the teachers were having, even though we did some PLC training beforehand. And so the two program coordinators have asked for kind of the same thing, I think it's Amy, having a Friday meeting with all of their staff on Zoom to go over the questions, to go over what worked well, what didn't work well. And what's been really neat in that meeting is the teachers helping the teachers. So somebody does, one of our teachers does classes for children in China. So she's got a ton of experience on online platforms. And so she'll constantly add in or chime in. So it's not necessarily up to us as a program or us as the coordinator to figure out all the problems, with the technology. So that's been really a nice thing. So they keep saying, can we keep doing that? And yes, we need to support our teachers because this is very different. Not all of our teachers chose to teach online. So we have a less amount of teachers doing that. But, I think it's something that we're all still learning. And I think the biggest thing I would just like to say, like what Amy said, is just constant communication with those staff because they're going to have issues that arise. And there's not a IT department at Zoom that we found to be able to call with those questions yet. So, we're trying to work through them with Zoom. We have had some weird issues with Zoom currently where students go to connect in and it won't allow them to connect. It's not that they haven't been invited in or whatever it is, admitted in. So those are kind of some of the things we're still working with. It actually happened to me last night on a call with some people at church too. So I'm not sure if Zoom is having some technology issues where at certain times things might happen. And so we've really just tried to encourage our students, just keep trying to connect, just keep trying to connect. Yeah, so that's just some things.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Ginger, Hillary, I saw you mentioned Uber conference. Are you able to talk about that with us a little bit? Call you right out.
Thanks, Katie. I was sitting here. I had to hide my quilting piecing here while all of a sudden. Uber conference, we actually were invited into an Uber conference, Joyce and I, by our workforce partners. And we really liked it. It was very easy to use. I haven't experimented with, the additional parts of it that much, but we've been holding all of our staff meetings via Uber conference and PIVA classes. So the problem with Zoom is that lately Zoom's been dropping a lot because of the, I guess, increased traffic. So I wanted a platform that maybe not, so many people were using, and we've had quite a bit of luck with it. So, and it's free, at least for now.
For how many people can you have on there?
50, up to 50.
Up to 50. Okay, that's good.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Is anybody or any of your teachers no longer willing to use Zoom? I know one of our local districts sent out something that says no teachers can use this anymore. I'm just wondering if anybody's had teachers say, I don't want to use it, it doesn't seem safe, et cetera, at all, and what you did about it.
Hi, it's Marianne from Fairfax. We've been told that we are not allowed to use Zoom at all. So we're pivoting to Blackboard Collaborate, which is something the school system is allowing and typically provides support for. We've got, we're kind of getting support catch as catch can because we're sort of prioritized below the K-12 system, which is huge, and they're trying to get that up and running. But that's what we're looking at working with. And what we're doing with my central team is we're really trying to focus on a few aspects of Blackboard Collaborate and, basically giving it, kind of giving it to teachers in a very focused way. So we're not going to necessarily be using it to its full potential, but just to simplify things and to keep it as manageable. And then as people are able to expand from that, they can do that, and we'll work with them. But for right now, to get something up and running as soon as possible, we're really narrowing the focus on it.
Thank you.
Rebecca, I wanted to call you out as well. If I can have you join, unmute. You mentioned TeamViewer. We use that at VCU a lot for technical support. I was curious how you guys are using that.
Hi, this is Rebecca. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. We use TeamViewer for a staff style of meetings, starting at 10, running till about 11:30 every Monday and Friday. And the beauty of that, we already had experience from years ago, and we already had a license. There is a fee associated with it, but it readily allows participants to share screens. You can very quickly turn from being host to a participant, and a new person becomes the presenter, sort of like what you're doing here. I did also put in that Brian Smith in our office is having us look on Monday at something called Google Meet. And I wondered if anyone is using that as well. It is free, and So again, we're using TeamViewer for our staff. We're using Google Classroom for actual engagement with students.
Would anybody like to talk about Google Meet? It used to be Google Hangouts. Stacy, you put in the chat. That means I got to call you out. Can you,
I hear you. Well, our teachers are primarily using that, and we have a Zoom meeting with them on Thursday to talk about how it's going. I have one teacher that uses it pretty regularly. And so we're a part of our PLC is to start sharing this among each of my divisions and talk about that. So they use Google. This one teacher uses Google Meet and Google Voice, particularly with ESL students, and that has worked really well because our ESL students need the conversation and the listening. So that has worked really well.
And they everyone needs a Gmail account?
Yes.
Yes. I was curious, we've heard a lot of the big names, Zoom and Google Class and Meets and whatnot, but I was wondering, as far as some of these other tools for, or even just tools for enhancing the experience, I was curious if like the WhatsApp or other tools like that, are people using some of those for enhancing the experience as well? Okay.
Hi, Katie. This is Xavier from the
Hey,
Literacy
Xavier.
Council of Northern Virginia. I can speak a little bit to some non-Zoom things that some of our teachers have been using.
Great.
Most of our teachers are using Zoom if they're doing any synchronous online classes, but 2 teachers in our intensive class that's specifically for kind of beginning ESL literacy, low beginning. Most of them are LESLA or SLIFE learners, so those with limited or interrupted formal education prior to coming to the US. Those teachers, when they were working with the students in person, they knew that a lot of the students already had WhatsApp, and so they made that recommendation as the tool to use to have continued education in this distance learning time. So that's what they're using, is WhatsApp pretty much exclusively. Primarily, they're using it to do video calls with students so that they can have that synchronous time. And they're seeing, this is the first week of them using it, and they're going to have a few more weeks with it. So they're seeing what things make sense to kind of transfer from the in-person class to the virtual space, and what things maybe don't make so much sense in that transition.
Are they sharing that out, like what's working and what's not? I was curious about like evaluating different products.
Yeah, they're taking good notes, sharing with each other and sharing with staff on what they've done and what's been working so far. LCNV, we've been holding some weekly chats, kind of inviting teachers on Saturday mornings to just share their experiences, kind of like Amy and Donna were saying earlier. So we haven't heard yet about WhatsApp in that kind of venue, sharing with other teachers, but we hope to soon.
Okay, great. Okay. I think as we move forward, maybe some way of, sharing what we've learned, I think would be really helpful, especially as all these tools are coming out, and I wouldn't want it to get overwhelming for everyone. And learning from each other and helping each other is how we'll survive. So keep up the good work. If there's anything that we can do at the Resource Center to help you out, questions, and anything like that, just please reach out to us and let us know. We're here to help you guys.
Thanks, Katie. I think that one other piece that we will want to maybe start thinking about, if you haven't already done so, is generally on our online courses and on our Zooms, we try to recruit a co-pilot, someone that can help as a tech assistant, maybe watching the chat. Like Katie and I go back and forth as, unmuting and remuting and that type of stuff when you're doing that. So I'm wondering too if you can use that Copilot in another way to maybe be looking at how someone is presenting or how someone is teaching, and providing some feedback on, are they using questioning techniques, and to start to incorporate some of that good online practices. We are going to definitely be doing some courses in how to do good online instruction, and so would love maybe in some future ones of these meetings, as you start to come in to your own and feel comfortable in practices, what are your PLCs doing in terms of giving each other feedback on instruction and things of that nature. I'm going to turn things over. Yeah.
Joanne, before we do, just going to derail for a quick second. As you're moving over the Haley, we've been talking about offering online summer courses. As we move over to Haley, if you guys would like raise your hand in the participant window, I'm just curious to see if there's interest in VALIC or offering some summer courses, online courses. So just raise your hand, I'll just get an idea of how many are interested. Thank you.
And maybe you can also put what you'd like to, or let us know what, I'm seeing a lot of hands. So what you'd like to be able to see for your teachers to participate in during the summer.
Yeah, just shoot me an email and we'll see what we can do. That's wonderful. Thank you, guys.
All right. Haley, do you want to go ahead and get started on conversations about low literacy ELLs?
Yes, thank you, Joanne. So this is a topic that has come up in a few different meetings that I've been in, a few different conversations that I've heard, and also I've seen a lot of communication about it on links as well. So I thought it would be a good topic to share today. So I just wanted to share some best practices for trying to reach and support and connect with low literacy ELLs at this time. I know that it's easier to connect with the higher levels and probably even ABE students right now. So one point is really building those connections in that community. I know in the English language classroom, community is a really big part of what we do, and now we're going to have to figure out how do we build that community in this online atmosphere. And one best practice, I think, is really figuring out where your students are and what modes of communication they already have access to, and kind of starting from there. So like Xavier mentioned, a lot of English language learners are going to already be using WhatsApp. They probably already use Facebook. They're probably pretty familiar with using their cell phone to make calls and text messages. So it's a really good idea to see what they what they already have access to and how you can utilize those tools to connect with them. One way of establishing that connection is, maybe on WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, doing like daily or weekly prompts or discussions. So for example, every Monday sending them something like, send us a picture of an activity you do this week that you like, with a sentence describing that activity, just to get the students communicating with you, to get the students communicating with each other. Another best practice would be kind of taking it one step at a time and really building the comfort and confidence levels that they have with those tools that they already have access to, like WhatsApp or Facebook or phone calls, before trying to move them onto Zoom or Google Meets. And you can use WhatsApp or Facebook or these other tools to kind of transfer them to the next level, or kind of scaffold how to use education platforms like Burlington English or USA Learns. And then another best practice would be using video and screen capture. So by sending instruction or by sending how-tos in video form, it really gives them the opportunity to watch and re-watch these videos, to ask questions. I think synchronized sessions may be a little overwhelming at first. So again, this is a way to build that comfort and confidence. And then also just really focusing on conversation skills. Reading and writing are probably going to be a little bit difficult online for the lower levels. So again, building their confidence by focusing on something they can be successful at is a good place to start. And then, again, moving them from just conversation skills into reading and writing and more difficult tasks. And then, like Amy mentioned, peer mentoring is a really good best practice in this situation. You can use, maybe you have a certain number of your students that are actively participating, and then some that are not. You could use the ones that are actively participating to kind of help motivate and encourage the ones that aren't. I have often, reached out to a student and said, I could really use your help with this. Do you mind if I give this other student your phone number? And they reach out with their questions. Usually students are more than happy to help in that way. And another idea with this is talking to other teachers in your program that may be teaching at the higher level, and maybe they have some students at the higher level that could help support the lower level students, could explain the technology and how to access it to them. It's a really good idea to try and group within the native language. I think somebody was talking about an Ethiopian community and using those connections within the community. So, that way if they need to, they can use their native language to navigate the online atmosphere that we're in right now. And I did just want to share some examples. Joanne, I'm not sure that I'm able to share my screen.
Just switching over to you. You should be able to do it now.
Okay. Okay, and then I was just gonna show some examples of what I was just explaining. And now I can't remember. Here it is. So this would be an example on WhatsApp, like I said, creating kind of these weekly communication threads or prompts. This one is, for example, if you were doing a healthy lifestyle focus that week, just asking them to send a picture of something they enjoyed throughout the week, and let students know they can send their response via text or voice memo. So maybe they are more comfortable speaking than they are writing, so that allows for that flexibility. And then you can also encourage interaction by asking them questions, and then if you need to, encouraging students to ask each other questions. When I've used WhatsApp, typically interaction happens really organically, and it's not something the instructor really has to prompt that much. This is a really good way of building that community and keeping the students connected to each other. This would be more of an example of sending some pre-class discussion prompts or materials. So maybe you're doing a call with your students later on in the week, and you want to start to activate some of that background knowledge or prior knowledge, and also maybe introducing some new vocabulary or just getting them thinking about the topic. So you could send these materials, you could use pictures. I've done an example of a Quizlet that would help them practice with the vocabulary needed for the call. And then also a screencast-o-matic video that shows them how to use Quizlet, so when they do go to Quizlet, they understand what to do. The great thing about WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger is you can do your calls there. So, maybe your students are having a hard time understanding how to get onto Zoom or how to get into Google Meets. You can do group video calls in WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, which are, both free and accessible on the cell phone, which is another important thing to keep in mind. And then finally, I do have an example of a Screencast-O-Matic video. So Screencast-O-Matic is going to allow you to take videos of your screen and show students how to do certain things on the platforms. So this would be an example of how to, this would be an example for students of how to create their USA Learns account. So this could be a video that you send on WhatsApp or Facebook. And in addition to the video, you could also send, written step-by-step instructions. And you could also end up doing a video call with them while they are trying to set up their account. So you can also guide them that way. So there's just a lot of options and a lot of different ways to connect and reach students. Joanne, do you want me to show the example video?
If you can access it real easily. I know that we had several people that tried Screencast-O-Matic or have used it, but for those of you that haven't, it wouldn't hurt to show just maybe about a minute or so. You want to be sure that you're...
show you how to create a USA Learns student account. The first step is to visit the USA Learns website. That website is usalearns.org. Now that you are on the USA Learns website, click Start Now. Here for a USA Learns student account. The first step is to type your email address. Next, you will enter your first name and then your last name. Finally, you need to create a password. Your password should be at least 6 letters or numbers with no spaces. Okay, so that's an example. So basically, it's just capturing your screen. You can do the video of yourself down here in the corner like I did. You can also do it without that. And one of the really great things is once you upload it into YouTube, you can put the subtitles on there, which I think is really important for the low-level learners to have those subtitles with the video. So I think that's pretty much everything I had to share.
We had a couple things in the chat come through. One that VLRC did feature Screencast-O-Matic this week. If you want more information on that, just click on our website and you'll see that on our tech tools. Xavier, do you want to share what you were talking about in the chat there real quick? He shared a Facebook page on the Lesla Facebook page, some information about WhatsApp as well.
Sure, I can mention it, and if I don't have, so yeah, it's a Google Doc that has various ideas from David Rosen, some other adult ESL teachers, Heidi Spruck-Wrigley, some leaders in the field for many, many years on, if you're using WhatsApp for general practice, what are some examples of good practices for using WhatsApp as an online equivalent? Or if you're going to use it for modeling or creating and finding content to deliver to students. So I know with Zoom, you can't click on the link that I put in the chat, but just copy and paste it, or follow the Lesla Facebook page, and then you can find it there. But It's got a lot of ideas. It's an 8-page Google document. It just went up yesterday or today, so it's got some recent stuff.
Thanks. And that reminds me that this is the type of thing, these links that you might not be able to grab out of chat are the type of thing that we built the Google site to be able to hold. So as we go on in the weeks and people have these wonderful examples or things to add, links to share, that's the really best place to do that. If Karen, if you want to pop, or Katie, if you want to pop that URL into the chat box one more time. It is a Google site, so it eventually may limit people to contributing if you don't have a Google account, only those that do. And there's probably about 3 or 4 people that are on it right now that do not. So just get in touch with us and let us know how we can help to get you better access on there. But these are the types of things that are great to share. I'd like to go on
Add one more
and
thing, Joanne, sorry.
yeah.
I'm going to put a link to a Google Doc in the chat. It just has an outline of kind of what I discussed today, and also it has some links to different resources. There are some discussion boards and links that are linked there that are really, really great, have a lot of really specific examples that I think would pair well with what Xavier shared as well.
Excellent. I'm going to go on ahead to Elizabeth and let you share out about low-level ABEs and some thoughts there.
Great, thank you. First of all, a lot of what Haley shared with the lower level English language learners applies with lower level literacy students who are English speakers, mostly because they're getting them onto the technology. You kind of have to meet them where they are. So a lot of what Haley said definitely applies to the lower level literacy students. And one of the things that I saw come through some of the community-based literacy organizations, which some of the lower level ABE students might be feeling as well, is an anxiety and nervousness of losing contact with their teachers or with their tutors that they were working with. And so I think it's really important to send out emails or phone calls or text messages and try and stay in contact with them as much as possible. But first I do want to open it up to see, is anybody still using any of the XPRIZE apps? I know Learning Upgrade, even if you didn't have an account when we were going through XPRIZE, they have a free version now that is pretty much geared towards lower level students. Their higher level material, I think you have to pay for, or you had to have been grandfathered in with the XPRIZE. But is anyone on the call still using any of the XPRIZE apps? And if so, how is that working with your learners? I will take that as a note, that nobody's still using XPRIZE apps. That's okay. If you are and you want to share, please pop it into the chat. But if you do have lower level students that you're trying to reach out to, maybe consider looking at the free version of Learning Upgrade. Again, it's something that they can use on their cell phones, and it will give them some of the tools that they need in those alphabetics and fluency and those lower level skills. It looks like Carol just said they're still using CellEd. And of course, she said that Xavier can speak to this if you want to, but you don't have to.
Sure, I can say a little bit. Yeah, we're still paying for some CellEd licenses each year. And you know, in these times where we can't have any in-person classes, we've tried to be kind of strategic since we don't have a limited number of licenses. We've looked at, you know, the students at NRS levels where we've had lower percentages of gains from pre to post, you know, looking at our state data from previous years and whatnot. So then we kind of looked to those students in those NRS levels, which for us is kind of on the lower and higher ends. And then, you know, our typical orientation thing is we look and see what technology they have. We see how their attendance was. In this case, of course, it's a little bit different because they might have more time now, even if they couldn't attend in person. You know, with CELED, if they're a Spanish speaker, even at a beginning literacy level, they could still potentially take advantage of it. But if they speak a language other than Spanish, they would benefit from having more oral proficiency in English before starting with CELED. So we just kind of have different criteria that we are going through, and then targeting certain students to reach out and try to sign them up, see if they're interested first, of course, and then doing some follow-up. But it's been a really helpful part of our toolkit to be able to offer to some students, knowing that it's a high-quality product and we've been using it for several years, and we can track and report it on their as proxy hours for the state. So.
Thank you. And that's a good point too. Learning Upgrade, you can track hours with that and use those as your proxy hours. Are there any other literacy organizations on the call that want to share out what they've been doing? I know Literacy for Life had some really excellent luck and turnout with a Zoom class that they did, that they had people from, it sounded like, all over the world that joined their English class, which is pretty amazing. But are there any other literacy organizations or people who are even ABE classes that have lower level literacy students that you're having any luck with any of the technology or any methods, Remind app or anything like that that you're using to work with your students? Okay, well, that's okay. If you have anything that does come up, please go ahead and put it in the chat. And Joanne, if you can go to the next slide. So I want to highlight this resource from the Read Center, and you can go get to it at readcenter.org. They have curated a bunch of resources that for their tutors to access in all of these different areas. So you can see there's stuff for financial literacy and computer skills, people with learning disabilities, health literacy, alphabetics, comprehension of vocabulary, et cetera, et cetera. They've taken all these resources from the web and then curated them. And so you can go and click on this when you go to their website and you click on Tutor Resources and pick your topic. And then Joanne, if I pulled up a couple of screen captures just so you can kind of see what it looks like once you pull it up. This is just an example from alphabetics or vocabulary and comprehension, but they've got a plethora of online resources. And it's just kind of a nice space where you can go and look, and then you just get a brief description of each of the resources. So if you're looking for something for your lower level learners, maybe starting here would be a good place just because you have such a variety of topics to choose from, and it's very well organized. So I just wanted to highlight that again. So that's readcenter.org and just click on Tutor Resources and that'll take you right to all of that. I think that's pretty much all I have, unless there is anybody who wants to jump in with any other resources.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. One thing I wanted to ask was if anybody has been in touch with their local community-based literacy organizations that may not be the AFLA-funded community-based literacy organizations, or know if they are still operating, how they're operating, how you might use this time to really reach out and collaborate, and if anybody's been doing any of that and they might want to share what they've been learning from their local organizations. And if not, if this is probably a really good time to actually do that. Think about your locals, what they're up to, reach out. You know, those connections are really important in these times, and you never know. It might be an opportunity to think about things in a way that you haven't been thinking about in the past, and learning how they're connecting with people and helping to build a pipeline of individuals who still are able now to connect to their local tutors and maybe seeking to be moving to their next phase in the next couple months.
Joanne, this is Wanda Boggs. Our Reed Center, the Richmond Reed Center, is closed until May 4th, and they have canceled pretty much any new orientations, new tutor orientations, or what have you. IRC has also closed its operation for right now here in the Richmond area, where we have an IET class that we offer through the region, and we recently have moved that to some online support from the CCWA trainer, and he actually hosted, he and the ABE instructor hosted a class, which was very nice, at 7:30 on Thursday evening. So, you know, they're just trying to, and we will be given those additional training days whenever we resume. So the trainer and the ABE instructor calls us just extra for the students. So they should be really feeling confident when it's time for them to take the certification exam.
That's awesome, Wanda. Good to hear. I think just, you know, from people in your programs, a connection to the executive director, even if programs are closed, you know, just to let them know you're thinking about them and what they're doing might be a helpful thing. All right, so our final conversation then today, we've got about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to go on and share. Jenna, do you have anything? You had a list of a couple things to do some FAQs on.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, good. Sometimes I'm not so good at this technology. So wanted to let you all know, last week I talked a little bit about the laptop learner programs that were going around nationally, and we even had MP Race from our local area who shared a resource for us too. And so I wanted to let you know, I put all the resources, there's 3 different resources on the Google site, on our Google site now, that I shared today. And it's actually, I did it as kind of a comment under the talking about managing remotely. And so that is, there's a resource from the Chicago Public Libraries, which they have a great FAQ for technology page, and under there, it's just a lot of good wording and just a good resource as you're trying to come up with a wording for your own protocol and your own contract for your lending laptop program. The other one, like I said, was MP Race, and that's just their contract that they use. And the third is an adult ed program in New Hampshire. And so I attached their protocol and also their contract page. So those are the 3 resources for you. And then I also just asked the general question of, you know, please share any strategies or any documents that you have. Let's add those to, you know, my thread so we can have it all together as the laptop learner section of our Google site. The second one, we still have had questions about content and proxy hours. And so Heidi, do you want to jump in on this one? Because I usually let you talk about the actual policy parts. So I don't know if you want to jump in. Thanks.
First of all, the typo did not occur to me until I just saw it just now. So the differentiation is between contact and proxy hours. So
Okay.
just so that
I
we're
was
all
wondering.
thinking about the same vocabulary
That's
here.
mine. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I was wondering too.
So contact and proxy. As we're thinking about our new normal, we are working at a distance all the time, right? So our old definitions of distance education, our old conceptions are not really working here. Contact hours are when your teachers are meeting with students directly, that there is verifiable identity on both sides. So one-on-one emails, of course, classes that you hold on Zoom, telephone calls, mentoring calls, coaching calls, emails, hangouts, whatever people are doing where you are working with students, you're sure that the student is on the other end. Those are the contact hours. Magic drawing board going on here. Proxy hours are what are earned in the distance ed curricula that have been approved and are on the list. So we need to keep thinking about this with you, keep asking your questions because people are doing such creative things and we really appreciate that. Just let us know if you want to run through a scenario to see if something would count. If you are dropping off materials that are not on the distance ed list, but things that you had in your storeroom and asking students to work on them while classes are canceled, that's not either one of these things, right? That would be just supplemental homework kind of work. It really has to fall into either verifiable identities or it has to be earned in the materials and resources that are on the approved list. We keep getting questions about it, and that's fine. Keep asking because every situation just raises more questions, but can't seem to say it often enough.
Right. Thank you. And thanks to the magic hand that wrote contact instead of content. So one of the other questions, by the way, we've really enjoyed talking to you all over last week and also this week, and just seeing where you are in your programs and spin downs, and then also just kind of how your remote programs are going. And one of the questions that we've gotten multiple times is on now that we're 100% remote, how training is going to continue, or some of you that still we're trying to do an IET program in the spring. We're asking for ideas and resources for online trainings. And so we have been compiling a list, as you know, and I will put that list on our Google site, and so that way you can have the list. We just need to, we're hoping that maybe today, if you're using any other online credentialing or training programs, that you can put it into the chat just to make sure that I have them on my list. I went through our IET planning tools and also just the conversations and tried to compile the ones that you all are already using, and then also through the IDEAL Consortium and links, tried to compile other online training resources and the actual credentialing that's offered online as well. But if you use one, or you've seen one, or you're interested in one that you've thought about, if you can add it to the chat, that'd be awesome. Because like I said, I just want to make sure that I have them all on my list. But I'll be able to have that list out onto our Google site by the first part of next week. So appreciate that. And then the final thing that we have heard, and just lots of questions, and as you know, there's been a director's memo that mentioned this as well. And we've received a little bit of guidance from Octave on it as well, is the remote testing assessments. And we are still waiting for guidance from the actual testing publishers. And but as it was mentioned earlier, they are frantically trying to put guidance and protocol in, and we will definitely get that out to you as soon as we can. Heidi, do you want to mention anything about this one further?
Nope, that's where we stand. But we could use some of this time to take any new questions from you.
Perfect.
I'm going to ask program managers to stay on for a little bit, and we'll go over a couple policy items. But are there more questions that we need to work on over the next week or so? What's preventing you from doing what you're trying to do? That's really what I want to hear. And Nicole asked, what about GED testing? They are one of those publishers who are really working to stand up solutions. So as soon as we know what we can share, we'll let you know. Don't let your students give up hope. Keep them learning. Anybody else? What's preventing you? So Carol asked about the Best Plus virtual. That came out from the Center for Applied Linguistics. Carol asked, write to them and ask for their guidance document. That is, you may administer the Best Plus in a virtual environment. It's an oral test. As long as you follow the guidelines, that is approved. That's approved. Let us know, just shoot us an email so we can put it in your grant file that you are following the guidelines of the publisher. I think a couple IELCE programs are using Best Plus. So, work with each other. They suggest that you practice. Practice is always good. We would definitely recommend that you follow that guidance and practice before you give someone a post-test.
Thanks, Heidi. I would like to put the offer out for anybody that's, you shared some great things that are going on at the beginning of the conversation today. Anybody that would like to highlight their teachers or demonstrate some of the things that they're doing, send an email to either Katie Bradisax or myself, and we'll put you on the agenda for next week. We'd love to be able to do that. We're at the end of our first hour here. I don't know if there's a lot, Heidi, for you to be doing on updates from the federal guidance, but we'll turn the conversation over to that. If there's nothing else that anybody wants to share for the good of everyone right now.
Joanne, did you see the question, Joanne and Heidi, did you see the questions about any update for the possible GED testing? Did we talk about that at all?
Yes.
Okay.
We did.
Oh, okay.
We are watching publishers' emails carefully. So we just got an email from TABE. They're going to tell us something next week. So watching for that. They are getting a lot of pressure around the country. So I'm going to turn into a policy discussion, especially for the program managers. So, and I want to finish before the governor speaks again at 2. And I do understand there will be some updates today that might be relevant to us in workforce development. So I definitely want to watch it and hope you will too. Joanne, can you allow me to share?
I just wanted to say one thing, that here at VCU, we've been told that we're teleworking till June 10th. So we are continuing to not be physically in our office, but we are definitely remotely available. So be sure to let us know if you have any questions or need connections of any kind. We're happy to help you. And I will turn it over to Heidi then to move forward. You need to do screen share, Heidi?
Yes, please. So I wanted to let you all know that another FAQ has come out from the Department of Education, and it is focused, it's not just for AFLA, it is for all of the department. Okay, let me, for some reason I am seeing my toolbar right where I need to see my tabs. There. All right, so this fact sheet that came out, it's on ed.gov/coronavirus, and that's where we found our AFLA specific FAQs as well. This came out yesterday afternoon, and it answers the question of compensation for employees out of federal grants. And the bottom line is this. If an organization, that would be a school or entity, if the organization pays consistent with its policies and procedures, similarly situated employees whose compensation is paid with non-federal funds, then those employees paid with grant funds may also continue to be paid, with the number 2 footnote with all of the usual caveats that it must be allowable and reasonable. So if you had a period of time in your organization that was completely closed and people were not working, but some people were being paid, this is the guidance to say you may charge hours to the federal grant, and also to any I'm going to highlight down here, any non-federal sources that are used in a matching capacity. So GAE or SLCA may also be used in this situation if necessary. I'm hearing that most of you are working all the time, so that's awesome. I'm really happy about that. The last paragraph of this, we laughed about this on my team call this morning. Sue said it sounded like federalese to her. Yes, you can pay people during the closure if other employees are being paid, but they should consider ways to support continuing operations. So this is what you all are doing anyway, so no big scold here. It's just funny to see it. Yes, you can, but try and get people working. FAQ 2 is about travel and conference fees and getting refunds. We have talked to quite a few of you who were in the situation but did get your refunds back from the conferences. So I haven't heard any of you say that you've been unable to be refunded. If you can't get a refund for something you've already paid for, let us know. But I don't think that's the case. And then travel insurance. But I think that we are not traveling right now, right? The governor's extension goes until June 10th, and that's just about the end of our program year. So it's really question number 1 that I wanted to make sure that everyone saw. Are there any questions on that? I want to figure out, I don't want to pay any omegas while we're on together, but you can see that I was just doing that. I just needed to get that toolbar down for me. I don't see any questions, so I'll go on from there. I wanted to let you know that, as you already know, the VEC unemployment insurance teams, colleagues of ours, are so swamped. 150,000 claims last week alone, and everybody has to resubmit their claim every week. They're swamped, and they're going to be swamped for a long time. So on all of our calls together, we have heard from some of you that you have some staff that are not working, are not able to work, that their duties have been closed. And I'm thinking in particular about folks who teach only in corrections. So I don't know about you, but we are just not confident that corrections is going to be able to open up as soon as the rest of the society opens up. So I fear that the closure of correctional education will be extended until they really have the virus under control. It's not an environment where they can do social distancing, so it is just going to be a heartbreak, I think. So if you have any staff that you know are basically unemployed right now because they can't be paid because their classes have been canceled, if you've got corrections instructors, or if you know other people in your families and communities, shoot me an email about that. Tell me who they are and what they usually do. They may be eligible to be retrained as a VEC unemployment insurance claim worker. VEC is trying to work through DHRM and see if they can't reassign some state staff. How do they hire up? They're working every end of the issue that they can. So I'm putting that out there. Let me know just shoot me an email and I'll try and manage the information over to VEC. Another thing that's going on in the Workforce Development Task Force is they're starting to stand up subgroups and task forces, I guess, to talk about recovery and retraining. So that's interesting, and I'm trying to hold on to those conversations and make sure that we are in the mix and that we understand what's going to be offered. So stay tuned on that. Your work is very important, and I'm shouting from the rooftops that you all are keeping things going. We so appreciate that. And while people are out of work, couldn't they be, working toward their GED? Could they be upskilling? Are there training programs that we can offer online, et cetera? And VCCS is talking about this too. They're also looking to make sure that students are not unfairly charged if they were in a fast forward class that had to be put on pause. They're trying to extend the end date of all of those classes so students don't get classified as non-completers, and then they would have to pay up, right? How that fast forward program goes. So they're trying to keep track of that. We've talked to many of you who are waiting for your community college to restart the training programs, and they are trying to figure out how to do that, whether they can do mostly online skill development, or if they could do, one-on-one, have students come in for appointments to demonstrate their skills. They're really working to try and figure out how to do that and how to help people finish these programs that they're in the middle of. So stay in touch with us and stay in touch with your training provider. Don't give up. They're working it. Another thing that I wanted to let you know is that the guidance for how to enter newly enrolled students will be coming out next week. Thank you to those who sit on the advisory data professionals group or have your data person do so. We appreciate their time. Really helped us think through how to talk about the solution, the patch that we're putting on. We want to put on a patch that's useful and pretty obvious, but then we can also pull it off when we don't need it anymore without disrupting the underlying logic of the system. So watch for that. We'll have a recorded PowerPoint and probably a director's memo come out on that solution, how to enter new students. I can see there's some chat questions, so let me so the VEC position. So Nicole, just shoot me an email if you've got people that you think might be interested in knowing more about the VEC hiring. They are looking for folks who will help them process the unemployment insurance claims. I'm not sure exactly what the occupational title is. I wanted to show you also a couple things that have come out. Let's see. That's that one. This toolbar is in my way. This is a new problem I haven't had before. Let's see. Las preguntas, that's what I'm looking for. I will put these on the Google site. There are FAQs from the governor's office about getting unemployment compensation and navigating that, all of the options that are available to workers. This is about workers. And it just came out today in Spanish. So I'm going to send you, put on the Google site, both links so that you can have it. They are both at governor.virginia.gov media. You should be able to find them if you want to look for them right now. And then I'll put them up there. I am also trying to stay in touch with the task force that is working on the Medical Reserve Corps. And the Medical Reserve Corps, you hear the governor talk about it, they are trying to recruit about 30,000 volunteers, they're called right now, volunteers into the Medical Reserve Corps. And it is people of all kinds of professions, not just healthcare professionals. They're looking to use some of the federal stimulus money to pay these folks, so they're not truly volunteers. And they are going to have some of this information, like a social media kit, to get the word out in multiple languages. So I'd like to stay in touch with all of you to help spread the word to the immigrant communities through our students. So Amy Judd, way back at the top of our time together, you were talking about how your students are serving as ambassadors into their communities, and that's exactly what I'm trying to say to our colleagues at VDH, is that we have a way to help get the word out in immigrant communities. We know there are a lot of foreign credentialed health professionals in the immigrant communities. So how do we reach them? And maybe family members or neighbors of our students, and in some cases our own students. So stay tuned on that. I appreciate your interest in it. Trying to stay in the right task forces so that we know what's going on and that your programs are really positioned as part of the solution. And the last thing that I wanted to show you was this superintendent's memo on the DOE site, we are accepting nominations for our advisory committee. And thank you to Linda Sire, who just finished her 2-term stint. But our call for nominations is out. And if you know wonderful people in your community who you would like to nominate, this is the way to do it. And there's a timeliness to it. So look at that. It's memo 074-20, and it's on the superintendent's memos site. Okay, I'm going to stop and look at the chat, and I can probably stop sharing and let it open up to your comments. Anybody else want to ask questions at this time? The policy segment of our Friday afternoons. And Linda's correct. She's noting that our call for nominations emphasize manufacturing and marketing. Lots of things go into marketing. It's kind of a retail as well. Do we have anyone in your circles who could help us represent the retail workforce? That would fall under the marketing emphasis. Thank you, Linda. Linda's been kind of volunteered to do a little recruitment for us, so we really appreciate that, Linda. I think that wasn't what quite, you weren't quite expecting that bit of work this week, but we appreciate it. Anybody want to share anything about thoughts on retraining? Are you getting any traction as you reach out in your communities to folks to say, hey, why don't you use this time to finish up your GED or work on your English? Is that a message that resonates? I'm going to call on people, do what Katie did. Hey, Alice. What's going on in your world, and what policy questions do you have, if any? Anything preventing you from doing your work these days?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I wouldn't say anything. I think everybody's been very supportive about what we're trying to do. You kind of tagged one of the things that was a concern for me today, because, you know, we hired a CareerWorks liaison at the VCW who I have not been able to pay. And she wants to go to work. So now this gives me an opportunity to see if this VEC claim worker will work for her. We also have office staff at night that have not been able to work, and you know, people are kind of depending on these funds right now. So I hope that's going to help us. One of the big things that you all have already addressed is really about this online testing. I received an email yesterday from Hampton Words Workforce Board Youth Services, and they're trying to get programs up and going for ages 14 to 24. And this TABE online testing is really stopping them with bringing in these new students. So
well, make sure, Alice, make
soon.
sure they have a copy of the Director's Memo 2520.
Okay.
That went out to all of you. I did send that, and I sent that to all the Workforce Board directors, to the Title I administrator, the Title I youth administrator, I don't know how widely it has gotten down to the youth coordinators. So for all of you, feel free to share that director's memo and let them know that we can enroll new students. And if they're, you know, they may be comfortable adopting the Department of Ed guidance to do that with us right now. Or maybe
Okay.
they need to write to DOL and say, hey, Department of Ed is doing it, can we do it too? I don't know what guidance has come down from DOL to the youth program, but let them use our little memo as a wedge.
Okay, I certainly will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And let me just say one other thing about the UI claimant workforce. They are looking for folks in a semi-long-term situation, not just for a couple weeks, but 6 months at least. They're looking at this work going on for quite a while. So that's something to think about when you think about people who don't have anything to do right now. Is it going to pick up in a month, in a few weeks, when we can get remote testing going, for example? Or is it my example of the corrections? I just really worried that correctional education will be closed longer than we would like. Anybody else with a policy concern today?
Heidi,
Nicole?
this is Nicole.
Yes.
The one thing that I've noticed, and somebody mentioned, I try to go on GED Manager every couple days and, you know, reach out to contacts. I've noticed in the past, you know, week and a half, 2 weeks, and we also have a link on our website where people can send questions in. And a lot of requests have come in for how do I get my GED now? How do I get my GED now? So I think, you know, working through the data team about the call with Tom on Tuesday and Jeffrey about the ways we can enter people in NRS is going to be very helpful. I think we're all just kind of waiting for what GED or what Pearson does.
Yep.
I know locally, if you go onto GED.com, there are some testing sites that say they're going to open by a certain day. But I think that's something that and I know we're waiting, but if we could have some pressure, maybe put on Pearson, that it's something that's going to need to be worked out, because now we have people that were previously employed that are no longer employed. This is a prime opportunity for them to work on their GED, to get an upskilling and to get a better job. But we're still stuck saying, we don't know when you can test. We don't know when you can test. So I've just kind of noticed that that's kind of been happening a lot more. The inquiries come directly to my email. A lot of questions. We have our WIB board has our Workforce Center partners. We have a call every Tuesday morning where everybody kind of updates what's going on. And, you know, I have been saying we're still open to take new students. We're still open to take individuals that need a GED. But of course, their question is, but how are they going to get their GED? When are they going to take it? So I know that there's not much we can do if it's Pearson's choice, but
Nicole, could I
Go ahead,
correct
Sue.
something? It is not Pearson's call, the reason that testing is not going on right now. The testing centers are being closed down because they're following the local guidance. Trust me, GED Testing Service is working on something, and we should know something by mid-May. We still have 17 open operating testing centers in Virginia right now. Unfortunately, there's not one in every locality, but I'll be glad to send you that list that I have that is currently open. Maybe your people won't mind traveling to get to a testing site. But for right now, we're just waiting for everything to happen with GED Testing Service. And then that's going to be on a limited basis. That's not going to be open to everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Believe us, they are feeling the pressure from everybody in the country. So they're working something out. And you know, and I know, maybe the people who are writing to you don't know, but they probably need to do some brush up on their skills before they sit for the test. So help them get connected to some distance learning opportunities so that they'll be ready to test when there's a slot available for them. People want to go sit for the test tomorrow, but that's not always feasible. But I'm glad that you guys are hearing people say, hey, while I'm out of work, can I get, how do I get my GED? That's exactly what I was hoping to hear, because that will help us as we work with the recovery strike force or task force. So Sue, Alice is asking if you could send the list to everyone, and just know, you guys, that whatever, okay,
I will
that list
send that list to all
day
regional
day.
program managers.
Okay, very good. And the governor's order, Linda, is for retail entities to follow social distance guidelines and to not have more than 10 people in an establishment. So they could stay open if they follow all of those guidelines, where the governor has not blanket closed private enterprise. It's all so nuanced. But speaking of the governor, it's 2 o'clock. I think there will be an announcement about workforce today. So I am going to surf over there, and I hope everybody has a great weekend and stays healthy. And I hear from you online all next week and see you online next Friday.
We'll see everyone next week. Thank you.